I'm going to channel my inner Zoltan Poznar because I got this from him. There's basically three things led to the previous cycle that we were in of low inflation, low interest rates, low economic volatility, and leverage the hell out of everything in financial markets. The first one was cheap labor. We don't have cheap labor anymore. We got 3.5% unemployment. We got 5% wages, and employees are in the best position they've been in a generation to demand wage increases. The second thing we had was cheap goods from China. So even though you weren't getting a raise up until 2020, we were offsetting that because things were getting ever cheaper at Walmart, and you could continue to buy ever cheaper stuff from China. Well, that's changing. We're talking about reshoring, and we've got political strife between the U.S. and China. Heck, they just blockaded Taiwan a couple of weeks ago in a show of force of what they could potentially do in the future. And the third thing, and this is in the Doomberg's wheelhouse, is we had cheap energy from Russia to Europe in order to fund or push their manufacturing base that they could make ever cheaper things, because you cannot understate how important energy is into a manufacturing process. We don't have that anymore either. And so we've lost all of those things. And now we've got all of these bigger problems coming, which is why we've got inflation, which is why when we talked about, going through this process of the bear market, look, the economy's changing for all of those reasons. But in there's a residual of the last cycle. If there is a segment of lending, or if there is a segment of the market that is in trouble, heck, I might even say to Doomberg why people are not really getting that exercised about what's going on in Europe right now is because they're still thinking of the echo of the previous market. It is still August. It is still 80 degrees. I can't get worked up about freezing this winter. Besides, somebody will figure something out to make this go away, because that was always the case up until 2020. But that could always be the case because when you had cheap labor, cheap goods, cheap energy, you never had inflation. And the answer to every problem could be turn on the printing press. But now that you don't have that and you have inflation, the answer can't be turn on the printing press anymore. And that is a difficult thing for people to get their head around. So when you talk about loans being a problem, and is anybody paying attention to it? Some are, but others are still thinking this is 2020. A lot of people in Europe, I know who Doomberg was talking about that macro person on Twitter that was saying, look, Germany is filling up their storage facilities, and it's all going to work out. That's a pre-2020 mentality is what that is. And that always assumes no inflation, no economic volatility, zero interest rates, turn on the printing presses, and every problem goes away. That's the hardest thing for people to get their head around, is has this cycle has turned. This is a different environment than the one before.
Jim,
I got
to say it. I mean, this is why I brought the analogy of the housing crisis in 08. Back then it was housing prices never go down. What are you worried about? It's contained to subprime. Oh, it's just a German issue here, and they will work it out. I can't agree more with what you just said. All of the fundamental underlying assumptions of how, for the past 40 years, the world has worked are being challenged simultaneously. And it's really just fascinating to watch. And look, maybe it won't play out. We happen to believe that German electricity prices are the Lehman Brothers moment for the European economy, and it's very difficult for us to model how the rest of the world muddles through with the collapse of manufacturing in Western Europe. Anyway, back to you, George. Sorry.